Coming to you live from our campsite, this is Optimal Play. I'm Brandon.
I'm Steven.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm going to teach you how to play Waypoints. Have you ever fantasized about going for a hike?
Every night.
Yeah, I'm always like, next weekend I'll wake up early and go for a hike.
That's always the best time to hike, is next weekend. Well, this game lets you, delivers on that fantasy of letting you hike through a national forest and see animals and gather victory points, as one does when they hike, I think.
Yes. I usually find them just off the path, the victory points, I mean.
Yeah, you always got to keep an eye out for them. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a learn to play video. We are not going to play through on this same video. I'm going to try to keep this quick and concise because I didn't see a quick and concise Waypoints learn to play on YouTube. But this is not a fancy video that is scripted with a lot of good-looking B-roll. This is just me teaching my friends how to play Waypoints so that we can play it.
Or good-looking people.
Yeah, exactly. So, I hope you find it useful, and I'm going to dive in. This is Waypoints. It is a print-and-play game from Postmark Games. You can buy it and get the files on their website for just a few dollars. We're just playing it on top of mats right now so the pens don't bleed through onto my nice table. And you also just need, in addition to writing implements and a sheet for everyone, a single D6. This one is this oversized one with a weird 1 from Imperium Classics. I don't know why it has a weird one, but it does.
Sure does.
So the goal of Waypoints is to have the most victory points at the end of 4 days of hiking. Each day of hiking is going to have a variety of weather that causes what we can do during that day. I'll talk about that in further detail in a second, but the very first thing that you do is randomly determine what the end game scoring goal will be. So points come from lots of sources. One of them is this goal, 1 per game. There are actually A, B, C, and D in the corners of this so that you can randomly determine it by like spinning your pen or pencil. Like this pointed to B. So our goal this game will be goal B, and that will be the same for everyone. In this one, it is to visit, or you'll get 2 points for every woods area that you visit, which is these green areas, and you get 10 more points if you visit them all. The other goals could have been visiting the lakes, visiting as many grid squares of the map as possible, or crossing as many of the bridges as possible. So what we're going to do as the game begins is roll this die. It's going to be the same outcome that we all use. It is a 5. So this is going to determine what the weather is for each kind of segment of our hike. And what the weather means is that's how many action points everyone will get. What this 5 actually does is we're going to, for our first day of hiking, we're going to start in the on the upper part of this border, and the game will continue all the way around this border, and will end when you get to, it even says Fiend up here in the upper left. We're starting at 1. We're going to, whatever number we rolled, we're going to count that many spaces and use the resulting spaces weather. And so for 5, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, and we can all kind of circle or mark this. It's raining, so we'll have 2 action points. I'll talk in a second about what that means, but then after we all use our action points, we'll roll again. Oh, it's 6, so we'd count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now it's like partly sunny, and so we'd all get 4 action points. So on like that. When you reach the end of each row, that's the end of a day of hiking, you will always use the sunset weather at the end. So like even if we had gone on to use this sunny 5 and then from here I rolled a 5, we would still use this last sunset. At the end of each day, you gain 2 water. I will talk more about water. And you journal, which is sort of a scoring opportunity that is here that you have to, you must use 1 at the end of each day, and you must use all 4 throughout the 4 days. So it's up to you to decide what the best order to use those in is. So here's what you're actually doing with those action points. You are hiking. You're going to start the game by choosing one of these 6 campsites with like an orange campfire on them. Mark it with an X, and that's where you're going to start your trip through this park. So I'll start over here at number 1. And then each round of the game, the action points that you get allows you to draw a line completely freehand from the waypoint that you're starting that round at to another waypoint. And waypoints are all of these spaces with orange dots that are labeled with all these different symbols. The action points come into play where, so as you travel each round, you have to use an action point to cross any lines. And so that includes these curved lines that represent changes in elevation and the grid lines of the map. And so with 2 action points, 2's not a great number here. So here's what I'm going to do, I think, as an example. I want to get from my starting campsite to these rabbits, but we started with rain and only have 2 action points. So I don't want to go through this little elevation curve right here, so I'm going to carefully, I'm drawing freehand so I can go wherever I want. I'm going to go around it, go through one line, cross this bridge.
Bridges are free.
Bridges are free. You cannot cross the river at all, regardless of, like, you can't spend action points to cross the river, except at the bridges, and crossing at the bridges is free. So for 2 action points, I've just crossed 2 lines, 1 map grid line and 1 elevation curved line, made it to the rabbits. So I've done it. If you can't do that, that being leave the waypoint that you start the round on and make it to another waypoint, then you have to rest. And if you rest, you don't go anywhere and you gain a water. And what water is for, when you earn them, you'll circle them and you'll cross them out when you use them. Water you can use on any round for +1 action point. So that's another way to not get stuck having to rest is drink some water.
You
can
just
make
cross it out.
Yep, you'll just cross it out. There's no limit on how many you can use per round. Although I've never seen this come up, there actually is a hard limit of 20 in the game. You can't get so much water that you go over 20. So along the way here, I did not cross through any as an example, but there are 2 types of features that you can go through. I'm just going to keep drawing for example. Like say I'm going to go over to this compass location on the next round. So if I go 1, 2 through this water, the boundaries of this water are not lines for the purposes of action points or anything. This is a lake that you can just go through. When you do that, at the end of your move, you gain a water. So that is, other than the 2 that you get for the end of each day, that is the other way to get water is to touch the lakes with as you draw your lines. You can only use each, you're welcome to go back through that lake when you move on, but you cannot get water again on the same lake twice. Each lake has exactly 1 bottle of drinkable water in it.
For each person.
No more than that. For each person, yeah. The other similar feature is these woods. You go through them the same way. You can only use each one once, but they don't cost anything. You get to mark off an animal of your choice. And that takes us to then what do all these waypoints do when you get there is generally whatever type of waypoint you reached, you mark off the next or fill in the next section of its track. You can see all these animal symbols, these compass, and this like triangle thing is called trig points. Whatever it is, you're going to mark them all off. And what I've explained so far are the basic rules of waypoints, and then what the waypoints themselves do is completely different from map to map. And there's currently, at the time we're recording this, they keep adding more, but there are 3 maps for waypoints. So before I talk about the specific waypoint effects, any questions so far?
I do have one question.
Yeah.
If you cross through a lake and get water, can you use that water in the same turn?
That's a great question. No. You gain that water at the end of that movement, meaning you can't go through a lake because you need 1 action point now and drink it. Yeah.
Oh, can you cross your lines?
You can cross your own lines. Yeah, it's not Snake. You are allowed to cross your own lines, and it does not cost an action point to cross your own line. I prefer not to. I find that the map at the end is more aesthetically pleasing if I don't. And who wants to walk the same trails they walked before, right? Okay, so each waypoint that you visit, you'll mark off the next space on its track. 3 of them are types of animals in the Whistling Water National Park is the name of the map we're on. That has bears, rabbits, and birds. So the majority of these spaces on this track have numbers. When you mark, I say you mark off a space. In this case, you probably circle them. At the end of the game, you'll get points equal to the highest value that you circle on each track. So if I made it to here on the bears, I would get 16 at the end of the game, if that makes sense. Same for the other 2 animals. A couple of them have gear in them, though, and that gear is different from map to map. So what the gear that the bears allow you to use is a kayak. The gear is similar to the water. You'll circle them as you move down the track, and you'll mark them off as you use them. So what a kayak lets you do is on a future round, you can travel on the river. And you can, I'm just going to, for a new example, say I started here at these bears where I just earned a kayak. You can travel here, kind of when you get to the river, you can decide, all right, I'm going to use a kayak. And then you can travel along the river, not using any action points. You can travel crossing as many as 3 grid lines of the map.
Oh, wow.
So from here, for this example, I could take this lake. You just go under bridges. In this case, I've crossed 1, 2, 3 grid lines. So I would need to sometime before I get to the next grid line, I would need to dismount from the river and maybe end at that campsite, something like that. So again, those 3 did not cost me action points. That was all part of using the kayak. So you can get 2 kayaks that way from the bears. The rabbits give you jackets. Jackets help you when the weather sucks. Yeah, they keep you warm and dry. So what a jacket lets you do is anytime that you have only 1 or 2 action points, and that would mean that the weather is snowing or raining or sunset, I guess, you can use a jacket for +3 action points. It's as simple as that. You mark it off. You go 5 instead of 2 that round, and you can combine it with water or anything like that. The gliders are a little bit trickier. You earn gliders on the bird track. You can use a glider at the end of any move. So you would finish a move. Let me say, okay, so I finished at this compass location, for an example. I would get the benefit of that compass location, so marking off the next circle here. We'll talk about backpacks, which those give you in a moment. And then in addition to that, I can mark off a glider to do a special move to any waypoint that I can see. And what the waypoints that are visible in this game are defined as anything in your grid square or an orthogonally adjacent grid square. So let me zoom in closer. From this location where I am in the example, I can fly to this mountain peak, to these bears or rabbits. I could fly to this campsite. I've already been there, but if I hadn't been, I could within the same grid. But I could not go to these birds because you can't go diagonally. You also couldn't go to these birds because you can't go 2 grid squares away. So I usually use a dotted line, like say I want to use a glider, I would draw a dotted line to say this mountain peak, and I would also get the benefit of that waypoint this turn. So that is one of the 2 ways to get multiple waypoints visited.
And you can use that
turn.
Immediately? You get it and then immediately use it, or no?
I believe you can, since you, I think so. That's a good question. Let us know in the comments if I'm wrong on that, but I think in that case you can. I know that the woods, similar to water, the benefit of the woods you get at the end of the move, meaning you could not go through woods to see a rabbit, earn a jacket, and use it immediately for +3 action points. But I think since you're doing the glider effect at the end of a move, yes, you could use it the turn that you got it.
I have another question. Unless
yeah.
you're gonna get to it. When you're gliding, can you glide over lakes and pick up water, or glide through forests?
Another good question.
See stuff?
You are welcome to fly over them, but you don't get the benefits of it. Yeah, you can't see through the thick trees. You can't see animals from
Maybe you can.
From the sky. You definitely can't bottle water from the sky.
You have a rope with a cup and you dangle it down.
Makes perfect sense to me.
All right, we'll take it up with the designers. Sorry, they missed that memo, I guess. Okay, so we've glided to the mountain, and what was I gonna say? That leads us to what mountains do. When you reach a mountain, you'll notice that they all have an elevation on them, like this one says 600 meters, and the 6 in 600 is underlined. That's how many points you get from going there. Mm-hmm. And you write that, so I got to the 500 meter, you write that on the mountain track. At the end of the game, you'll total those all up and get all those points, with the last little wrinkle being the 5th and the 10th peak that you visit have a multiplier on them. Like this says ×2. Whatever the value is of the mountain you got 5th, you would just double and write the doubled number there. Okay, so there's 3 other kinds of waypoints. There are lookout points, these binoculars. They give you these cameras. Anytime on any of the maps that you have these little 2 notches on the circle, it means that you have to use it immediately. So when you gain a camera, you would circle it and cross it off. And what that lets you do is mark off a waypoint that you can see following the same rules as gliding as if you had visited it. So from this binoculars, from this lookout, I earn a camera. I could say mark off these rabbits, and I would just put an X on them. The reason it's important to mark them off is that you cannot, I'm not sure if I said this, you cannot visit the same waypoint twice in your entire game. And that includes any that you've taken, that you've marked off via the camera, etc.
Yeah. So it's like a glider, except you don't go there. You just mark it off.
Yeah, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, you must use it when you earn it, whereas the
Okay.
glider you can save for later. Yeah.
It's funny that it's easier to haul around a glider than to haul around binoculars.
Yeah, don't overthink it. Speaking of hauling things around, these compass symbols give you backpacks, and what backpacks are is a wild piece of gear. So you can circle them when you earn them, mark them off later for any of the types of gear that the animals on that map grant you. So you can use a backpack as a kayak, a jacket, or a glider. And those, they don't have those markings, so you can save those for later. So you can have a backpack inside of your backpack with a kayak in that one, you know?
That's
And
But you
then-
don't, when you say I'm using this as a kayak, you don't mark off a kayak over here.
Correct. You mark off the backpack and do the kayak effect. Yeah. Last is these trig points. They are simply worth a lot of points, and the reason they're worth a lot is because there's only 5 of them. And they're located in the 4 distant corners and also the center of the map. So they're hard to get to, but if you get to all 5, there's 35 points.
Nice.
So circling back on that journal scoring, you must choose one of these to score each day. These are also different depending on which map that you're playing in Waypoints, but on this one, there's a point per different type of waypoint you visited that day. There's 2 points for each waypoint of the type you visited the most of. So if you visited 4 rabbits, you could get 2 points each and do 8. This one is 3 points for each... No, I'm sorry. I think that I have these reversed. This one is 2 points for each pair of equals. And then, shoot, wow, I've always found the symbology confused. All right, fact check me in the rules here. I think I did actually have that right. It's 2 for each matching one of the one you have the most of. And then this third row is 3 for each type of waypoint that you saw at least 2 of. And that's why there's this little symbol that's greater than or equal to 2. And so that one you want as many different pairs as possible. And then finally there's a journal entry for 1 point for every 2 map grids you went through on that day. So that day will just be from the start, from wherever you started that row of the board. You'll count that up, claim those points. You get to circle this times 2 and double the points that you earned if you end your day at one of the campsites. So you start the game at one. That is also the other purpose of them, is that if you end at one, you can double your points. You may not get there early and then stay there, like declining to move. You can, you must arrive there in the sunset part of the day. Which actually reminds me that I think I mentioned that you can't move if you can't cross, if you can't make it to another waypoint.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, or if you don't move, you get water. You
Yeah.
get 1 water. Can't remember if I said that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you did.
You also can choose to do that if you really just would rather have water than go to the waypoint. It seems like getting to as many waypoints as possible over the course of the game is one of the main fundamental strategies, so I would not recommend doing that very often. One thing I'll also mention, but feel free to read the rules if you're going to play this solo, is that if you play this solo, it's kind of a score attack. You compare your score to a rubric. You must end every day at a campsite, or you lose. Or you can play a slightly easier solo mode that lets you, that only requires you to stop at campsites at the end of 3 out of 4 days. You have 1 buffer day. So at the end of that, you'll add up all your points from each of these sections. There's space down here to add them up, and whoever has the most points wins. Any questions?
Did you mention what water did? I can't remember.
Yeah, you can mark it off for +1 action point on any move, yeah.
Thanks.
So, yeah, I think that covers everything. I guess I'll remind one more time that as you're adding it up, you will circle back to that end game goal that we determined which one it would be at the beginning, right? But you'll check, you get 10 bonus points if you met all of the criteria, which the only one of those that I've ever pulled that off with is the bridges, actually. 10 plus 10 if you cross all the bridges. I think that almost like getting to all the lakes, etc., very, very difficult. Sweet. Well, thanks for joining me to learn Waypoints. We're gonna, wow, I taught them so that we could play it. We're gonna play it. Not in this video, but make sure to subscribe to Optimal Play, and we'd appreciate it too if you would like this video. Leave us a comment, and check out our playthrough coming very soon. I'll see you guys there. For you guys, it'll be minutes away.
I'm so excited.
It's a good game. I'm excited too. All right, till then, be optimal.